The healing of the blind beggar. The next morning, the three went to the house of Lazarus for breakfast, and then they traveled to Jerusalem. When Jesus and his 2 apostles arrived near the temple on this Sabbath morning, they found a well-known blind beggar in his usual place, a man who was born blind. In Jerusalem, beggars were forbidden to ask for alms or receive them on the Sabbath, but they were allowed to sit in their usual spots. Jesus stopped and looked at the blind man. As he thoughtfully gazed at this man born blind, he conceived a plan to draw attention to his mission on earth before the Jewish leaders and the Sanhedrin. While Jesus stood in deep thought before the blind man, Nathanael, pondering the possible cause of the blindness, asked, "Master, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" The Jews believed that all cases of congenital blindness were caused by sin. A child could be born blind as punishment for a specific sin committed by his father or mother. Additionally, there were remnants of a belief in reincarnation in these regions. The older Jewish teachers tolerated the theory that a person could reap in one incarnation what they had sown in a previous existence. It was believed that one had to atone in one life for sins committed in a previous life. Jesus often had great difficulty convincing people that their soul had not previously existed. Although such blindness was thought to be the result of sin, the Jews, as illogical as it may seem, considered it a great merit to give alms to these blind beggars. These blind individuals habitually sang in a monotonous voice to passers-by, "O merciful one, earn merit by aiding the blind." The blind man was named Josiah, and Jesus decided to use this well-known beggar to draw the attention of the Jewish leaders to himself, but first he answered Nathanael's question. Jesus said, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this man is blind so that the great works of God might be revealed through his healing." Jesus raised his voice slightly so the blind man could hear him and said, "This blindness came upon him in the natural course of events. But we must do the works of him who sent me while it is still day, for the night will surely come when it will be impossible to do the work we are about to do. When I am in the world, I am the light of the world, but soon I will no longer be with you." When Jesus finished speaking, he softly said to Nathanael and Thomas, "Let us restore this blind man's sight on this Sabbath day so that the scribes and Pharisees will have every opportunity to accuse the Son of Man, for that is what they desire." Then he bent down, spit on the ground, mixed the earth with his saliva, and while narrating his action so the blind man could hear what was happening, he approached Josiah, applied the mud to his blind eyes, and said to him, "Son, go to the pool of Siloam and wash this mud from your eyes, and you will immediately receive your sight." When Josiah washed off the mud in the pool of Siloam, his sight returned. After the initial excitement of gaining his sight passed, Josiah did not know what else to do except return to the place where he usually begged for alms. This poor man had never known any life other than that of a beggar, and now that he could suddenly see, he was disoriented. When his neighbors and all who had known him before noticed that he could see, they said, "Is this not Josiah, the blind beggar?" Some said it was indeed him, while others said, "No. It is someone who looks a lot like him, but this man can see." But when they asked him directly, he replied, "Yes, I am." When they began to ask him how it came to be that he could now see, he answered them, "A man called Jesus came by, and while he was talking to his friends about me, he made a mixture of earth and saliva, applied it to my eyes, and sent me to the pool of Siloam to wash. I did what that man told me, and immediately I received my sight. It happened only a few hours ago. Much of what I see I cannot yet recognize." When the people asked where they could find the man who had healed him, Josiah could only reply that he did not know. This was one of the strangest of all the miracles Jesus performed. This blind man did not ask to be healed. He did not even know who Jesus was. When Jesus sent him to Siloam to wash, he had little faith that he would receive the promised sight. However, the people of that time had a strong belief in the efficacy of the saliva of a special or holy man. And Josiah had gathered from Jesus' conversation with Nathanael and Thomas that the man who presented himself as his benefactor must be a great man, something of a learned teacher or a holy prophet. So he did as Jesus instructed. Jesus used earth and saliva and instructed the blind man to wash in the symbolic pool of Siloam for several reasons. 1. This was not a miracle in response to the person's faith. This was a miracle Jesus chose to perform with his own agenda in mind, but he arranged it in such a way that this man would benefit permanently from it. 2. Since the blind man had not asked for healing and his faith was minimal, these material actions were suggested to encourage him to take action. He held the superstition that saliva was an effective remedy, and he also knew that the pool of Siloam was a somewhat holy place. But he would not have gone there if it had not been necessary to wash off the mud. There was just enough ceremonial aspect to the whole event to prompt him to act. Jesus restored this man's sight through a miraculous wonder on a Sabbath morning at one of the city's most well-known beggars, who always sat near the temple. He did this primarily to provoke an open debate in the Sanhedrin. This was his way of challenging the Jewish teachers.